Once again, the government is working hard to take away your hard work. Take away what you made, take away what you've created, take away what you've accomplished in your life. The primary example of that right now is Zoran Mamdani in New York. I don't think that Thomas Sowell would in any capacity support the efforts this guy is making.
The economy has recuperative powers. I mean, employers have an incentive to hire people. Workers have an incentive to get jobs. Lenders have incentives to lend. They don't need somebody in Washington trying to micromanage all of this.
Your argument is not only weak form of the argument. We don't need Barack Obama to breathe life into the economy because it'll recover on its own sooner or later.
If Barack Obama stays out of the way.
That's what I'm saying. The strong form of the argument is Barack Obama's actually been holding it down.
No question.
But that's the progressive and the socialist and the Marxist and the communist movement, is to try to take over aspects of the economy. So now you have Zoran holding up bananas, which already cost 20 cents. I mean, come on, they're unbelievably cheap. Even organic bananas are not really that expensive in comparison to other foods. It says Mamdani holding up bananas is very funny. The bananas are 20 cents. Bananas are already solved, right, by the market. This is New York City. There are a million complex technocratic tasks waiting to be solved. What are we even doing? But this guy's talking about how at the 5 Bureau municipal grocery stores, New Yorkers will get a 30% discount on eggs, milk, chicken, fresh produce, and other everyday essentials, right? But it's not actually free. That's something that other people have been pointing out as well. It's not actually free. You're just getting subsidized by taxpayers. So people are still paying it. As Milton Friedman would say, who's also good friends with Thomas Sowell, there is no such thing as a free lunch, right? Somebody's paying something. It says here from Matt Van Swole, here's what 100% will happen to all 5 stores. Bookmark this for the future. Government subsidized grocery stores open at 30% lower prices. Local grocery stores cannot compete. They go out of business. City store becomes the only option. No competition. The food desert they set out to fix is now worse. Demand is high. Supply is low. Empty shelves become the norm. City responds the only way it can. Purchase limits 2 per customer. Rationing occurs. A rush every day. Hoarding. Lines. To control the bleeding, the city quietly shrinks the basket or lets quality slide. Wilted produce, thinner cuts, fewer options. Budgets balloon anyway because the subsidy never shrinks, only grows. And an even more extreme example of this was in the 1930s. Too many Americans don't know the government culled 6 million pigs, nearly 1 million cows, and literally burnt food. Look that up. It's horrible. Rock Chartrand says government can't repeal costs. A municipal grocery store can only sell food below market price by having someone else absorb the difference. Taxpayers, suppliers, or future deficits. Calling it a discount doesn't change who ultimately pays. Okay. Says here, Thomas Sowell and the consequences of rewarding irresponsibility.
Well, I think if you don't have a sense of personal responsibility, and what you have is the government taking money from people who are personally responsible and giving it to people who are irresponsible, or in other cases corrupt, that's not a viable situation for the long term. You're going to have ever more people being ever more irresponsible, as is happening now. I mean, in the wake of the mortgage crisis, they've raised the limit that the Federal Housing Administration will insure from about 360,000 to 720-some thousand. So they've doubled the policy that got us into problems in the first place.
And that's why we might be looking at another housing crisis. And we're going to be looking at a food crisis, I think, in New York. I'm kind of happy I don't live there. And here's another discussion about the hardship Thomas Sowell has gone through in his life.
So you're now 16 years old, living in a room at something called the Home for Homeless Boys, while holding a full-time job as a Western Union messenger.
Well, you have a sequence a little
all right.
out that I went to the Home for Homeless Boys. I stayed there 3 days because I had a job.
I see.
And so I was no longer working for Western Union. I was working for people in the garment district. And so I then moved into this a little place that had a room for rent. The room was less than a third the size of my bathroom at home today. There was no closet. There was just a
hook?
no, there was a nail in the wall and that was sufficient for my wardrobe at the time. So that was the way that came about.
So you knocked around. You considered becoming an illustrator. The training was too expensive. You tried out for the Dodgers.
Oh everyone has a scandal in their lives.
But you missed a couple of grounders at first base, so they never even let you hit, which would have been your strength. And it was rough. A personal odyssey. 1949 would turn out to be one of the worst years of my life.
Yes.
It was a recession year, and I was plagued with recurrent unemployment. I walked the streets looking for work seemingly forever. Each day, I would decide which was the most promising job to go for and would arrive early enough to be the first in line. When that interview was over, it was off to the next job on the list, and so on all day long until I finally returned home, tired and dispirited. I finally got a part-time job, working at night in a machine shop on the Lower East Side. I knew where to buy day-old bread for 5 cents a loaf and a jar of jelly for 10 cents. That and water constituted my meals. This may sound impertinent, but was that to be endured, or did you learn from that experience? From those years, this goes on for years.
Both. I think
Both.
Both. Yes. A few years later, when I was in the Marine Corps, I remember someone was coming around selling something in the barracks. Everybody was for a quarter, and everybody was snapping it up, and I was pondering it, And eventually, I said, "I think I'll take one." Or something. I said, "Oh, Diamond Jim Sowell is going to spend a quarter," because I'd become very conscious of while watching my expenditures from that kind of experience in 1949.
You were eating on 15 cents a day.
Well,
loaf of bread and
yeah.
A personal odyssey. Again, now these are during rough times, but what comes through here again and again is books, the desire to learn.
Yeah.
One day, I found an old secondhand set of encyclopedias. Now, it's striking that you remember the price, for $1.17. And I bought it. One of the entries was about Karl Marx, to whose ideas I was attracted for the next decade. These ideas seemed to explain so much in a way to which my grim experience made me receptive. All right, I read that and say to myself, this is one of the few times in your life when you're so low that you're open to thinking of yourself as unfortunate, perhaps, not a victim exactly, but here it is in the late 40s, early 50s America, and you turn to somebody who can explain things on class rather than race.
Yeah.
Why is that?
It
just made more sense to you.
Yes, but the other thing too is the education system then and now offers very little in the way of explanations, and so this is the first vision of the world that there was. In other words, there was nothing about the Federalist Papers or things like that would explain why this is done this way and so on. And when there's not much competition, you go with what looks the most promising.
That's a great video. It's particularly relevant since we're talking about New York, and Thomas Sowell used to live in New York as well. Lived there for a number of years, 12 or 13 years, including in the 1940s when they were just talking about how difficult times were back then in 1949, and how he was trying to change his life around. And for a minute, he thought that maybe Marxism was appealing, but then he went and eventually worked for the government and realized that it's complete failure. It doesn't work at all, unfortunately. So He ended up changing his ways again. It says here, important to understand that Mamdani's grocery stores will still be privately operated. The 30% discount on core items will be subsidized by taxpayers, but everything else is the responsibility of the store operators. And guess what? Operators are also required to keep prices subjectively fair on everything else. So operators have to pay for rent, lighting, living wage employees, and goods to stock the shelves, but they effectively have no control over their own prices. So yeah, these stores are 100% going to fail. So they have to provide fair pricing and 30% discounts despite having to pay for all these immediate needs of, for regular business expenses, all those overhead expenses. And it says here, this is why the media ignores people like Thomas Sowell.
Some time ago, I met with a well-known TV newsman, and I asked him, why is it that when I look on television and I see what black spokesmen are saying, that I see them saying diametrically the opposite of what I hear in the black community, what I see in Gallup polls and other polls. For example, that blacks in this country support voucher systems 2-to-1. Blacks in this country prefer more strict enforcement of crime laws, are opposed to quota systems in employment or college admission, and have never had a majority in favor of busing. And yet when I look at the TV news, an entirely different world is created before my eyes on that tube. And he said to me, well, we can put Ben Hooks or Jesse Jackson on TV, but we can't put the Gallup poll on TV. Some time ago, I met with a well-known TV.
So a lot of these government solutions in New York are not going to work. Thomas Sowell, Frederick Douglass was truly a hero because he never saw himself as a victim, unlike a lot of these New Yorkers that voted for Mamdani, right? He was born a slave, he escaped slavery, and later bought his own freedom. He taught himself how to read and write. One of the ironic things is how students today can't understand the type of English language he used in any of his writings.
It would be Frederick Douglass all the way. Frederick Douglass, as you probably know, was born a slave. He escaped. He educated himself and made his living writing, including books, as well as newspapers and so forth. And it's hard to see how, well, one of the things, one of his books, for example, was recently reprinted in recent years. Mm-hmm. And the irony in it was that there are all sorts of footnotes added to it, you see, because the language he uses, this man who probably never spent a day in school in his life, the language that he uses and mastered has to be explained to our expensively undereducated students today so they'll know what he's referring to. It is such a painful irony.
It is painful. Public schools are a waste of time. Kids aren't learning anything. They just sit in public schools all day to be told what to think. And unfortunately, a lot of the things they're being told are to adopt socialism and vote for more Zoran Mamdanis who are total failures at life. Thomas Sowell on programs aiming for equality. How is this relevant to New York? Again, this grocery store program is going to fail miserably.
I think the crucial thing is that when you try to create this equality, you don't create the equality, you create something else. I've been doing studies now for 20 years of programs designed to increase equality. They increase inequality because even when the programs are designed for disadvantaged groups, they help the affluent members of disadvantaged groups, while the lower members of those groups fall further behind than ever before. And not just in the United States, in India, to some extent in Malaysia, the very same thing is happening. I think the crucial thing.
Yeah, that's incredibly unfortunate. These programs just do not work. And Thomas Sowell on how economic downturns correct themselves.
Anyone who studied history knows that for the first 150 years of this country, the federal government did not intervene when the economy turned down. And all that time, the downturns all corrected themselves. One of the most classic examples was on the Warren G. Harding. When his first year in office, he found the unemployment rate at 11.7%. He did absolutely nothing. And he did not spend more government money. He cut back government spending. The Federal Reserve had the interest rates up at 6 or 7%, not down at 1% where they are now. The next year, unemployment was at 6.7%. The year after that, it was 2.4%. So the economy has recuperative powers.
And why does the economy have recuperative powers? Because it's individuals pursuing their own self-interest, right? That's what economics is. Economics are as human action. That's what it is. Thomas Sowell debunks the Great Depression's most entrenched myths.
There's this narrative out there that the reason we had massive unemployment in the 30s was because the market failed, the stock market crashed, and you had all this tremendous unemployment. Now, it so happens that for the 12 months following the stock market crash, we never hit double digits in unemployment. Unemployment peaked at 9% 2 months after the stock market crash and started going down. So the unemployment rate was down to 6.3% when the federal government figured it had to intervene. And that's when the downward movement reversed, and we never saw 6.3% again for the next decade. So I mean, if you follow the actual month-by-month employment numbers, it's just clear as crystal that the disaster came after federal intervention.
Government's intervention just does not work, and it's not going to work in housing or food or healthcare or the economy generally. So this is not going to work out in New York. I don't want New York to end up like Detroit, but I'm afraid that it might, which would be bad for America generally. So hopefully people will change their ways. Unfortunately, it seems like every generation has to relearn that socialism is a complete failure. Anyways, thanks for watching this long. Like, share, comment, and have a fantastic day.